Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're joining from. Um, my name is Abyssinia Gade, and I'm a team member here at the UN Food Systems Coordination Hub. And welcome to the first webinar of 2026, Food System Solutions webinar series, focusing on circular economy and sustainable food systems. As everyone gets settled in the room, I'll go over a few housekeeping notes for everyone. First, please note that the session is being recorded and will be shared widely after the event. You can find the privacy clause in the chat for your information. And also, the chat is enabled for the session, so it's open throughout. So feel free to introduce yourselves or share reflections there as well. In addition, we have the Q&A feature also available for this session. So if you want to pose a question for the panelists or any speakers, please pause it there, and we'll do our best to address your questions before the end of the session. With all that said, it's now my pleasure to hand the floor to Mr. Stefanos Fotou, Director of the UN Food Systems Coordination Hub. Stefanos, the floor is yours.
Okay, Abyssinia, thank you very much. And very big pleasure to be here. So let me try to start sharing my screen. And I would like to highlight that I asked that I give the keynote in this seminar because it's really something, the circular economy is something that resonates very much with what I've done the last 30 years of my professional life. It is more or less reflecting everything from my studies, my PhD, and then my professional life in the private sector and then in the UN. If the screens are fine, okay. If not, scream and tell me that it's not good. So what I would like to do in the next 10 minutes is to go through a kind of narrative on how a circular economy is the best pathway to transform the food systems. And I want to say here that a very important thing is that nature is operating actually in cycles. And we need to understand that nature and the natural environment, the ecosystems, is the basis for all economic and social activity we have today. I'm sure that you're familiar with this graph of sustainable development that shows the 3 cycles. It's a Venn diagram with 3 cycles, and they say that sustainable development is when the 3 cycles meet. I think it's very wrong, actually. And I think that we need to replace the 3 cycles that they try to meet with 3 cycles, one inside the other. And the very big cycle, the first one, is nature. So we have a system, a natural system that runs in cycles, but we have an economy that is not running in cycles. We have an economy that it is extractive and not regenerative. And we have an economy that creates a lot of waste. And it creates a lot of waste, not because waste is inevitable, but because this is how the linear economy that we have has been created. So why the circular economy matters really for sustainable development and for food system transformations? One is that the global economy we have today, it's linear. It's take resources, any kind of resources, minerals, metals, water, food, commodities, take the resources, make something, consume, and waste. And there's no design that things are going back. And there's no design that what we extract from nature is sustainable. One of the main ideas of sustainability is what we call the sustainable yield. So let's try to take of the environment what produces every year. And this is, for example, for the renewable resources. Let's think about the forest that produces timber. What we try to do is how much timber a forest produces every year. Let's say it produces 10 million cubic meters. So let's get not 10, let's get a little bit less, 9.5 million cubic meters. So we leave the forest to regenerate. What we do is we take more than this. If a forest creates 10 million cubic meters, we tend to get 10, 11, 12, 13. And that's why today we are consuming more than what the planet is offering. And that has led to the big environmental degradation we have with climate, with diversity. And part of this degradation is because of the way that the food systems are designed. So the way that the food systems are designed today, they produce, actually they drive 30% of global greenhouse gas emissions. They use 70% of the fresh water withdrawals, and 1/3 of the food that is produced is either lost or wasted. So we need to decouple prosperity from resource depletion. And why the key words here is decouple. So we need more or less to do more with less, or with with a different way. And we need to keep our focus on prosperity, because with prosperity is how we take people out of poverty. But at the same time, we cannot do everything on the expense of the nature. And the idea of circular economy is embedded in all the SDGs, notably on the SDG on hunger, on sustainable consumption and production, on cities, on environment. But it's really it can benefit all SDGs simultaneously. Circular economy has a lot of principles, but I want to highlight three of them here. One is that we design out waste and pollution. In many cases, I take a question here: can we design waste completely out? No, but actually we can design a system that it will minimizing the waste, or it will use the waste as another resource. So applied to food system, this principle means that we need the nutrients to return back to the soil. And we need actually to keep the balance of nutrients, because today we have a pollution in the soils because of nitrogen, a lot. The second principle is to keep products and materials in use. And that means that, for example, for the food systems, that materials circulate across different value chains. This idea that we always change the products and materials, it's just profiting specific interests and not the environment. And the third principle is to regenerate the natural system. So we need, when we talk about the food systems, we need energy and water to be reused and not to be exhausted every time we produce, process, distribute, and consume food. Circular economy can be applied across the food value chain, from the production to the processing, distribution, consumption, waste, and recovery. And what we need to understand is that a big thing is how we manage waste. If we go from an idea that we need to manage waste to an idea that we need to design circular value chains, then we have done a very, very big step. On some specific things in the production, circular agriculture means that we need to have regenerative and soil restoring farming, nutrient recycling, water reuse, integrated crop livestock systems, renewable energy in the farming operations, and that will benefit us because the soil will be restored, we'll have reduced dependency on inputs, and we will increase the climate resilience. It's very important that the effort of circularity starts actually on the production, because it is the basis of the value chain. When it comes to processing, distribution, and markets, here we need to talk about a lot of things. We need to talk about the real cost of food, circular packaging system, the valorization of byproducts, and what we need to do is to turn what was considered waste into a new economic value. On the consumption, we really need to rethink about the household food waste. You know that there's a lot of regulatory frameworks now in many countries. For example, there's a lot of regulation that say restaurants cannot throw off food, and the same for supermarkets. There are regulatory frameworks that they even penalty the consumers if they create a lot of food waste. I think that this is an untapped opportunity, because food waste is not, and at least food waste, yeah, not food loss, but food waste is not a technical problem, it is a behavioral problem. So food waste is not something that it depends on a lot of technologies. It really depends on the education we get and on how we grow up. I do have to say a personal experience here. and I know that it might sound a little bit unorthodox, but if we were wasting food when I was a kid, we were punished. And sometimes that was also a physical punishment, you know. I mean, it was not allowed to waste food. I'm not saying that punishment needs to be part of the tools, but I do think that we need another behavioral and systemic view. Some of the bottlenecks we have when we try to apply the circular economy, one is that I said in the very beginning that the economy is linear, and linear also are the policy frameworks that they support the agricultural agri-food value chains, starting with the subsidy regulations. We have a lot of fragmentation, so many actors need to be part of the redesign. We don't have infrastructures for resource recovery. Everything is created for the extractive and linear economy, weak incentives for the private sector adoption, and also limited consumer awareness. And unfortunately, I would say, today we have this epidemic of the influencers that they show, for example, that they need to consume as much food, go to food contests, get 1 ton of food in front of you and try to eat it in 1 hour. All of this is happening because there are specific interests that they want to promote overconsumption. The biggest barrier there, I have to say, it's not technology, and I will say this, it is the second time, is governance. We need another governance. As we need another behavior system for the consumers, we need other governance for the policies. So there are specific pathways. We need to talk about policy alignment, investments in circular infrastructure, business model innovation across the value chains, a very big role here for data, for transparency, for consumer engagement and behavioral change. The behavioral change will not come only with engagement and advocacy, it will come also from regulation. So the circular economy is not, you have many times listened about this triage, the reduce, reuse, recycling. There's something before these R's, which is the avoid the use. So try to see if you really need to use something. So, and that's why we need to redesign the food systems to operate within the planetary boundaries, what our planet is producing and how we can really benefit from the sustainable yield. So I'm going to leave it here and I give back to, I don't know, is it Abyssinia or Mia that will continue the webinar? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Stefanos, for taking us through some of this conceptual thinking around circular economy and why it's important in the context of food systems transformation. You also highlighted in your PowerPoint some challenges that we're facing and also some solutions and pathways forward. My name is Mia Madsen. I'm a policy officer at the Hub, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. Just for everybody to know, we will be sharing the PowerPoints after the webinar. So if you would like to look more at them, you'll have an opportunity to do that. There is also a question and answer function that we have in this webinar, and there is an opportunity for you to put questions that you have there or put questions in the chat. I see that there's already a question that has come into this question and answer function, so we'll look at that a bit later. We will move to the next part of our webinar structure, where we have a panel of speakers who will be highlighting some interesting and emerging initiatives on circular economy approaches applied at country level. And they will, of course, share their insights and key lessons learned from their work. It's my pleasure to introduce our first panelist, Ms. Aymerim Tursalieva from Kyrgyzstan. She's the co-founder and general director of TASAR, a community initiative promoting recycling and community-led waste management. She will also be highlighting the interesting concept of trash festivals, which she has been involved in Kyrgyzstan. So I'll hand over to Aymerim for her intervention. Aymerim, could you please tell us a little bit about your work on circular economy in Kyrgyzstan? So over to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mia. Thank you. My name is Aymerim Tursalieva. I'm a co-founder of Tazar, as Mia already told, and also I'm co-founder of the Trash Festivals, which we conduct in Kyrgyzstan. all over in Kyrgyzstan. Yes, and during our work, we actually try kind of to build these green communities in the area of climate change through activism and art, through recycling, through trainings, through theater, and through creative approaches. Yes. So next slide, please. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So Tazar is an organization where we have a mobile application through which you can actually recycle your recyclables in different cities of Kyrgyzstan. And also, what we do, we pick up the waste like recyclables from the households. So this you can all do through the mobile application. Yeah. Next. We also do the waste sorting trainings for schools, because in Kyrgyzstan, or I think like in developing countries, it's very important, like knowledge, how to separate waste, what is actually recyclable, what is not recyclable. And to Kyrgyzstan, it's just like this knowledge is just coming. So that's why it's very important to produce like leaflets. It's very important to produce training materials for schools, how to separate, and where we explain what is actually waste is nowadays, and why it's important to dispose it, or why it's important to recycle it, why are responsible to reuse it. So these are the we developed like 45 minutes training for the schools and for the universities and for the organizations. So it's in a way it's available to everyone online. You can also download it in English, in Russian, and Kyrgyz language. So and use it for your schools, and in order to kind of teach what is actually waste is, yeah, and how to separate and how to recycle it. Yeah. Next. And also what we do is we're working with environmental engineers around in Kyrgyzstan, and also at the moment with the University of in Zurich. We are connecting the environmental engineer students with each other for the knowledge share. For the knowledge share in terms of recycle, in terms of sustainable food systems, and about what the know-hows actually we can actually bring in these topics. Yeah. Next. What was very successful in Kyrgyzstan is school solid waste collecting points. We actually set up at the school. We set up a small collecting points, recyclable collecting points, and we found out that for kids it's actually a lot of fun, and they like it. They love to bring the recyclables from their house, and for that they got actually some points, or they got some stationery, or they got some socks, or they got some, for example, some soap. And it was very successful in rural areas because kids are very amazing. They actually learn very quick, and they also want to have their benefits. And then they would collect their recyclables from all around the village and from home, and then bring it to school. And they would get kind of their benefits in terms of like in the form of the, as I said, stationery, soap, yeah, or books, or for example the notebooks and the stuff. Yeah, and it was very successful in the southern part of Kyrgyzstan. Yes. So the next one, next slide. Yeah, and very shortly about the trash festivals in Kyrgyzstan is that we conduct trash festivals for the last 4 years. And within it happens like in Bishkek or in the rural areas of Kyrgyzstan. We choose the location a year before, and we choose a topic a year before, and we invite artists, we invite politicians, we invite researchers, we invite as I said, like theater performers, art theater performers as well, and to engage with us with a topic. So next slide, the one we choose. So for example, in 2024, we choose a topic of textile waste because Kyrgyzstan has a lot of textile waste at the moment, producing also for Russia and also for other Central Asian countries. and we engaged us with the topic of the textile waste. As you see, there's a big trash can made out of textile waste, and it is done together with a US-based artist, Steven Seagal, right? And we conducted the research on the textile waste. Yeah. Next. And also within the last 2024 Trash Festival, we opened up the Museum of Trash. Museum of Trash, it's the first sort of a museum of trash in Kyrgyzstan, but I assume it's also the first museum of trash in Central Asia, where we actually tell the story of the trash of Bishkek city, or maybe we can also say the story of trash in Kyrgyzstan. And it is actually located at the waste dump in Bishkek, near the city waste dump. And it's also, and it's visited from the school kids, it's visited also from the municipality workers, and it's one of the also locations where we conduct a trash festival. Yeah. So it's a trash festival which we conducted in 2024. It was in the rural area in the south part of Kyrgyzstan, where we opened up trash collecting point, recyclable collecting point, I mean, and we opened up a small recycling kind of a small recycling company there, and they are producing the Sinsipon there out of plastic, out of bottles. Yeah. Yeah. And next slide. It was a 2025 at the Trash Festival, where we wrote a children book on the trash. We are trying to create now a trash heroes, and on the base of the book we made a theater. So we within the Trash Festival number 7, we conducted a theater. We developed a theater kind of performance, and kids were performing, collecting the waste. They were upcycling the waste, they were recycling the waste, and also performing at the theater. Yeah. Next one. So as I told before, that we're creating at the moment the waste heroes through Fairy Tale on Sparkling Mountain. It's a book, it's animation, it's audiobooks, and it's also a theater. And as I agree with my previous speaker, that it's very important to create knowledge, how to recycle. It's very important to create knowledge at the very beginning, because at the moment what I see within my work last 5 years in Kyrgyzstan, that we're just working with the outcomes. There is a plastic and we have to recycle, but I believe that we have to start to work at the very beginning. We have to start to work at educational level. We have to actually bring an upbringing, like you have to put it in the upbringing of the children. And this is that's why at the moment we're putting kind of a more effort to creating books, to creating theater, as I said, animation, books, and as well to engage with school kids, with little kids, and to build up this environmental knowledge, be it actually climate change, be it recycling, be it upcycling, at the very early stage. And about the food waste, at every trash festival, what we do, we cook from the leftovers. So we actually offer to the trash festival visitors always kind of a small apero or something small to eat, and it's always cooked from the leftovers from the market, for example, or we actually save food at the food markets and cook with this saved market food at the trash festival. And in a year, we're planning a separate trash festival, which we will be devoting for food. It will be devoted only for food waste in Kyrgyzstan, because like for the big cities like Bishkek or Osh, a capital city, Bishkek is a capital city of Kyrgyzstan, it's more than 40% of our waste is food waste. in Bishkek. And of course, for example, for the rural area, I mean, people still having a chicken, or they're still having their livestock, and they can feed their kind of the food waste to their livestock or the chicken, for example. But in the big cities, it is actually a problem because we don't have a proper kind of a proper system to deal with food waste. And as you know, or maybe you know already, that food waste is one of the kind of a key factors why the waste dumps are burning. Waste dumps are burning because like 40% or more than 30% of the food in the waste dumps, it's actually more organic food, like organic waste. And organic waste, it's actually kind of it develops or it creates the gases. So that's why, for example, in Kyrgyzstan or the waste dumps all around actually the world, they tend to burn because of the methane, which is actually produced by the organic waste. Which is actually also a resource which could be used and reused. Yeah. And I think I will stop here, Mia.
Thank you very much, Aymarine, for sharing these very innovative and interesting examples from Kyrgyzstan. I see in the chat that there's a lot of participants that are interested in these examples that you have shared, and there's also a link to the Tazar Foundation there in the chat, so you can go there and have more. I'm sure we can share this PowerPoint as well with the participants later.
Yeah, sure.
I wanted to quickly follow up with you. So you mentioned all these interesting initiatives, as I said earlier. How would you put this in context to the bigger transition towards circular food systems in your country? What do you see are the most critical levers to actually scale up this? And Stefanos was mentioning early policy alignment, investments needed, and so on. Do you have any thoughts on that very briefly, if you could share with us?
Yeah, of course. In Kyrgyzstan, it's also like policies, for example. It's very important to develop it on the government level, and also to create the infrastructure, for example, for the same as food waste. Because, for example, in Bishkek, as I said, like more than 40% is organic waste in the households, and but we don't have any infrastructure where we could dispose, where we could actually bring our food waste or organic waste, and there's no like let's say there are no like composting organic waste, or there are actually government. Well, I mean, there is no kind of a support, right, to start to separate your organic waste, or even if you separate, what you do with that, where you bring your organic waste. As I said, there is no infrastructure, let's say, from the kind of a made or created from the government side, which is actually very important. And as well, I think like these campaigns, or let's say like city gardening, or let's say some activities and campaigns which would actually help to reduce it, or let's say community composting, for example, actions. I think such things we need in the cities, like Bishkek, or I mean, or in any city, and we actually lack such initiatives and infrastructure, and of course the policies.
Thank you very much. So I'll thank you for your intervention, and there's an opportunity, of course, to come in later. But we have another panelist with us as well today, and I'm now. It's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Aija Pilvere, who is the council chairwoman of AS Siedi JP, which is a family-operated agricultural enterprise in Latvia. So we're moving to another part of the region. Aija, welcome. I would like you to share with us some insights on how the enterprise in Latvia implements principles of sustainable agriculture and circular economy. So over to you for your intervention.
Thank you, Mia. Thank you, Stefanos and Aymerin, for very inspiring and presentations. I'm setting what Mr. Stefanos started from how we use all resources as a waste from one source to a raw material to another one. But good afternoon, first of all. And my name is Aya Pilver. I am chairwoman of council of company ZJP and also associate professor and researcher at Latvia University of Life Sciences and Technologies. And today, yes, as Mia mentioned, I'm joining you from Latvia, which is a small country in Baltic region, Northern Europe, with population of under 2 million people, but with the farming traditions and circular economic story, which I believe is directly relevant to today's conversation and webinar. So I will tell you today how circular bioeconomy looks in practice, not in theory, not in policy documents, but on real life, commercially viable farm right now. Thank you. Next slide, please. So what is the company ZJP? Actually, ZJP is a commercial company, and it's also one of the 13 farms worldwide, which has been selected and operating as a member of global network of lighthouse farms. What it is? It is a network founded and directed by Professor Rogier Schulte at Wageningen University and Research in Netherlands. These farms, 13 you see on the map, are not demonstration farms or research stations. They are existing commercially viable farming businesses or cooperatives that all have already found innovative solutions to the sustainability challenges we're all here to discuss. The network describes them as a farms that, what I love the phrase, is already in 2050 operating. Regarding the ZJP, you can see that's one of the Baltic states in the middle, and the location is with a blue dot. Its history began in 1991 when my father actually started the business with just a quarter of hectare of the land. But today is 35 years later and manages approximately 3,000 hectares of combination of owned and rented land. And we are employing around 100 people in rural Latvia. And that's a growth story is one thing, but what makes ZJP a lighthouse farm is not the size, it's what happens inside the system. So I'll tell you a brief how the circularity works in Latvia in our company. Next slide, please. So you can see the graph, but from the very beginning, the farm was actually built and evolved on a circular principle. Then when some sectors waste has become apparent, then we are trying, or byproduct, we are trying from one segment to think of creative solutions, how we can use it as a raw material for the next one, so we don't waste it. So nothing is lost, everything flows, and so how does it look like in practice? So ZJP produces crops, not only for sale, but also for use as a feed for its dairy and beef cattle operations. Because to feed cows with a good quality feed, you'll get better yield of the milk. And the company uses the slurry from 4,700 cows and heifers to produce biogas. The biogas plant generates electricity and heat. You can see the pictures of real establishments. That's our farm, the cows, and the biogas station as well. And then the surplus heat from the biogas engines is utilized to warm water and directed to fish farming operations in a recirculation system indoors, demonstrating an effective use of cascade of energy. So the byproduct or waste of biogas production is digestate, which is actually rich in nutrients and is applied as a natural fertilizer back to the land, to crop productions, either it's in liquid form or in dried form. This actually reduces dependency on synthetic fertilizers. This way, we are closing the nutrient loop and enhancing soil fertility, so bringing it back to the soil, organic matters. So surplus heat, as I mentioned, supports the cultivation of eel and sturgeon, so two fishes, which are actually located in recirculation systems in renovated old cold cow barns. So again, using old cow barns to establish fish operations. This synergy is actually integration in agriculture and aquaculture maximizes the use of available resources, while also, what is important, diversifying income streams. The integration of crop and livestock farming ensures that we are using land efficiently and are contributing to balanced ecosystem management. The company also collaborates with scientists to develop new products and optimize its processes. And this focus on research and development also helps us to continue innovation and adopt best practices for sustainability. What we're trying to show that sustainable agriculture and circular economy principles can be successfully applied in also large scale, contributing to economic resilience, because resilience now is the key word nowadays, and environmental protection as well as social being. So the question is why? Why circular economy at farm level? What is driving us? That people assume that sustainability is usually driven by regulation or ideology. In our experience, in my father's and our upbringing, the private driver is economic logic and attitude. What about attitude? It's about environment. In terms, we want to create a better place where we want to live. We want our children to live and to have healthy, high quality and tasty food. Who doesn't want that? And then you design a system where every byproduct has a use. You reduce input costs, you increase revenue streams, you build resilience against market volatility because you have either crop or milk sales or fish sales. So basically, there are different drivers at our farm level, which also actually, as we see it, as a benefits to the environment, local economy, and population. First of all, we are all talking about the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. What it means from farm. Biogas production captures methane from animal slurry, so which would otherwise escape in atmosphere as potential greenhouse gas. So the use of renewable biogas for electricity offsets reliance on fossil fuels and also further reduces carbon emissions. Second, improved soil health, which we use the digestate as an organic fertilizer, which enhances soil and fertility and reduces the need for buying chemical fertilizers, as well as minimizes soil degradation and pollution. Third, water and energy efficiency. As we are capturing heat surplus for aquaculture, and we are integrating farming operations, which helps us to more efficiently use water and also energy. What else? What is the popular term also Emery mentioned is waste minimization. We are integrating that waste from one process is used as inputs for another. So it saves costs and also saves waste and creating more value-added products. And this way we are minimizing environmental pollution and promoting more sustainable resource cycles. And there's still more to do at the current levels as well. What is also important is local job creation. We have approximately 100 employees, and we're providing stable employment opportunities contributing to local economical growth and income to the workers. We're located in rural areas, so this ensures employment possibilities for neighboring communities, which is also an important social factor. What is also important is increased economic resilience. The integration of multiple business segments mentioned, including renewable energy, aquaculture, it does diversify income streams and reducing our economical risks and enhancing financial sustainability. And also companies stimulating local economy by sourcing goods, services, and machinery from nearby suppliers. Next one is also knowledge sharing and innovation. The company is collaborating with university, with students ensuring internship possibilities for researchers, fostering knowledge transfer in innovations, potentially benefiting other local farmers and enterprises. So we ensure that knowledge of innovative solutions are transferred also to students. Last but not the least is food security. The production of dairy, meat, crops, and fish also contributes to regional food security, ensuring the availability of diverse and nutritious food productions. The business growth aligns economic profitability with environmental goals and contributes to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and mitigating the negative effects of climate change. So, what is the lesson from Latvian case today? First, circularity works best when it's designed into the system from the beginning, not retrofitted. Second, commercial viability and environmental sustainability are not in conflict. At CDJP, they are the same thing. Third, small countries and family farms can be global leaders in sustainable food systems if given the right framework, networks, and support. And also, last but not least, the global network of lighthouse farms exists precisely to demonstrate that the future of food is not waiting to be invented. It's already there on 13 farms around the world and on many more that have not yet been given the platform to share their story. Latvia is one of those stories. And I hope today it inspires many more. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Aya, for sharing this example with us. And it's indeed very, very interesting. And thank you for also elaborating on some of the lessons learned. I see that there's a lot of questions in the chat. And I was thinking I wanted to pick up on one of those questions in the chat before moving on. There is a question here. It's a bit related to what you were speaking. Do we need a threshold scale for circular economy to be technically and economically feasible? Or can it be feasible and viable irrespective of scales? Can it equally apply for large scale and small scale producers and consumers? It's a bit, yeah, maybe a difficult question, but if you could maybe share a little bit your thoughts on that question, if you have anything.
About the threshold, that's a good question. The question is when we are looking at what kind of solutions. If you look at the biogas, and you can't install a biogas by every house or every multi-story facility. But if you look at, for example, composting or what Emery mentioned, that food sorting, which we also have in Latvia, that organic food is sorted separately, that is already an option. So scalability, it's a threshold, it's a question of the size, because, for example, for waste as well as composting, if you have house gardening or you have communities, you can compost and then use it back to the soil. You don't need a biogas station. Larger companies, they can cooperate and create one biogas station, for example, nearby a cattle farm, and then also collaborate with bringing in raw materials or leftovers from the nearby production facilities for food production. So it can be, I think it's more about the collaboration and the size and the different solutions, because I'm talking about in Latvia and Finland, we have the biogas stations, but it's a different ones for lighthouse farms. In Austria, Alfred Grant, he's doing the composting again. So it's a different solutions for the same waste use or the threshold. So I think it's different solutions can be tailored, cooperation, infrastructure, and also some policy support is, like what Emery mentioned. I hope I answered at least in part the question.
Thank you so much. We have many more questions, and I'll try to do my best to pick up on some of them now going forward. We don't have so much time today, but we have another 20 minutes. So with this, I would like to invite Miss Martha Arnes Garcia, who is a technical advisor from the bioeconomy team at the FAO Regional Office for Europe and Central Asia. And she will briefly share with us some insights on FAO's work in the region, reflecting on what she sees are emerging trends and challenges also going ahead. And then after that, we will try to respond to some of the questions in the chat. So over to you, Martha.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much, Mia, for the introduction. So from the FAO Regional Office for Europe and Central Asia, we've focused part of the regional work on the thematic area of bioeconomy for sustainable food and agriculture. As we see this approach as capable of prioritizing this vision of reutilization, regeneration that was mentioned several times by our speakers today, which I think is a key word, and is capable of providing this idea to the agri-food system. So an approach that can indeed guide us to the transition from fossil fuel-based system to a one based on biological resources for reducing the impact on the environment. Next slide, please, Alicia. So from the period for 2022-2031, bioeconomy for sustainable food and agriculture was elevated as a strategic priority for FAO. And since then, at the regional level, we understood that it was key to have answers for a key question, which is, what is the status of bioeconomy, of this circularity in agri-food systems in the region? So for this, during the last years, we focused our work on these two main pillars, which is the enhancing of knowledge at the regional level and also extrapolating to the rest of the world our understanding, and then promoting awareness raising. So once these foundations have been established, now we will focus the next biennium on strengthening government and institutional capacities, this work stream from the regional perspective. Next slide, please. So during these years, we've done several activities. Just want to mention few ones so you can have an idea that we've been promoting scientific studies on bioremediation, bio-based products for plant protection, for instance, with institutions in Kyrgyzstan, in Kazakhstan, in Azerbaijan, in the part of in this part of the region. And also for knowledge sharing, we have established the regional technical platform on green agriculture, which is providing sustainable agricultural practices, supporting ecosystems, the good management of natural resources, and then events at national level, also regional level. I think it's important to point out this one, which is for the establishment of a global multi-stakeholder partnership on bioeconomy for sustainable food and agriculture. There has been regional consultations all around the world, and the process is still ongoing. And materials, which you can see on the right. I will just mention this one on case studies, because I think it's also wonderful that we could have today Aisha. One of the case studies presented as a successful project is the one from Latvia, the one that she just presented. And also this baseline assessment report that you can see on the right is basically providing most of the answers that we wanted to understand on the status of bioeconomy. Also some few other reports that you will have this presentation, so also you can read the content slowly. Next slide, please. So this is where I wanted to focus mainly my presentation on the key insights. So basically, we can say that sustainable and circular bioeconomy is a reality in the region. It is taking place at all levels, from the field to the political arena, but mostly fragmented. It's a good moment to integrate all of them in this idea of sustainable and circular bioeconomy, because most of them are not necessarily identified as part of this approach. So there is a fertile ground for advancing circular bioeconomy. For instance, there are already existing sustainable agricultural practices, most of them based on this local and traditional knowledge that hasn't been recognized as so. So in the challenges, you can see that we highlight the underutilization of these sustainable practices. Then there are dedicated national bioeconomy strategies developed by European Union countries, and also flagship policies and plans in other parts of the region, not specifically naming in the title the bioeconomy, but dedicated to other items such as bioenergy, biotechnology, green agriculture, and so forth. So other challenges that we have identified is the limited policy frameworks. This was mentioned by Amy Rim during the case that she just presented. So this is why we want to focus and strengthen this part on government and institutional capacities from now. And we have also identified weak data systems and institutional capacity. And the way that agriculture is being carried out is overusing natural resources and performing environmental degradation. Next slide, please. So just few key takes away for you, which I thought it was quite important that you have from this event, is that agriculture generates the largest share of biomass and biological resources for a sustainable bioeconomy. So it is at the backbone of this circular economy. Then food security is at the center of, is a principle, is at the core for guiding this development. And so we have to pay attention to trade-offs, such as, for instance, competition of land use, for instance, biofuels production versus food production. We've seen the diversity among countries on working on activities and projects, but so this is an opportunity for this co-sharing among countries on the different activities and projects and different levels that they are doing. And it's key to advance on knowledge, science, technology, and innovation. And for instance, there are, let's say, more advanced agricultural practices, modern ones that are providing this idea of regeneration, like regenerative agriculture, climate smart agriculture, nature-based solutions that can be also performed. And this is all from my side. I don't want to use much time, so I'm here for any question that you have, and I can reply. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Marta, for your intervention. Very good key takeaways that you highlighted there as well for the audience. So we will be sharing the PowerPoint presentation with you later, so you can also read more on what was written there. We have about 10 minutes left, and we have some questions that still have not been responded to. And I apologize if we can't respond to all the questions, but I'll do my best here. So I've picked out some questions here that I saw came out, and I wanted to see if there's any one of the panelists, speakers, Stefanos, Aymerin, Aya, or Martha that want to respond to these questions. One of them one theme is like focusing a bit more on developing countries. How can circular economy principles be integrated into national food systems policies in developing countries while ensuring benefits for smallholder farmers and rural communities? And there's also another question on how can global policy frameworks assist these countries in improving governance in adopting circular economy in developing countries. So I see that Stefanos has his hand open. So please.
Tommy, I want to come on this on the developing countries, because there's also a myth that is cultivated a lot that developing countries need first to grow and then to go sustainable. And that's wrong. And we have seen that this practice is not working. I mean, you see what we call today the advanced economies, the high income economies, that they started an economic process that it was not sustainable at all. Even today, they cannot recover. I mean, look at Europe, how problematic it is even for Europe to change their energy system. I mean, they do say that we invest on renewables, on everything, but still the energy system of Europe is very much fossil fuel dependent. So for the developing countries and the agri-food systems, I think the starting point is design your agri-food systems with three main objectives. One is to provide nutritious food with the right calorific amount to your national population. It's very important because I think when we design systems to serve the people, these systems by default, they will become more circular. The second is don't look at the value chain of the food systems as different dots. Look at as a circle. And try to connect the production process to the consumption and disposal process. And the third, and that comes to the small farmers, provide entrepreneurship skills for the small farmers, because the small farmers are the ones that they can really make for example, the low inputs agriculture happening. The small farmers are the ones that they will promote agroecology. But to do this, they need to develop entrepreneurship skills, and they need to elevate their role vis-a-vis other players in the agri-food value chains. Because right now, they are acting mostly as suppliers. They cannot, and if they remain only suppliers and they are not part of the agri-food value chain decision-making system, it will not happen. So for me, that's the three things. Design systems that they start by feeding your local population, go and support the small farmers, and also look how you are going to integrate, you're going to do the cycle and not a linear thing. Over from me.
Thank you, Stefanos. So there's another question I wanted to pick up on as well, and that one is, where does consideration of how resources are being used in the first place fit in circular economy? For example, using high food quality resources as feed instead of food. So anybody from the panel or speakers here who would like to say something on that question? Stefanos, you still have your hand up, but I see somebody else has.
Yes, sorry, my hand is a legacy hand. I'm going to lower it now. Thank you.
Okay, we have Aya who wants to come in here. Over to you, Aya.
Yes, thank you. I believe that food have to be grown for food, and it's a waste which goes into, which is not usable for the feed anymore. It's a waste product which goes into biogas, into compost, etc. Not that food goes to generate the energy. I think that's a big part, because food scarcity, food security is very important. So we are using the right materials for the right reasons and for right causes.
Thank you, Aya, for that. Okay, we have 5 minutes left. Marta, I see you also wanted to come in, so over to you, Marta.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to mention from the work that we've done during these years, and we already see it, like, again, it's true that countries are already working on this. We are maybe coming with what we could think it's a new concept, but indeed this circularity exists already. So sometimes it's most about recognizing what is already happening, like we've seen in countries from Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. There are many examples of sustainability agricultural practices happening at the local level. And sometimes it's more about recognizing and supporting how to move ahead with technology innovation, not about innovating itself, but starting first from this baseline, which is our approach, and then supporting them from them with the policies, with institutional capacity. So just wanted to mention this.
Thank you, Marta. I see now that we are running a bit low on time, so I'll stop the question and answer session as such. But something that I hear is coming out a lot in the discussions as well is this importance of sharing knowledge and you know, learning and so. And there's a lot of links in the chat, a lot of interesting information. So please have a look at that if you're interested. I wanted to take the opportunity to, before we close, give everyone like a one-liner thing, key takeaway from the discussion today that you want to send with the participants. So I'll start with Aymerim, if you want to come in and say just very, very briefly your key takeaway.
Yeah, my key takeaway is thank you for Marta for pointing out that there are actually a lot of local circularity models. There are a lot of local own kind of food systems, and they're very effective for this locality. This goes also back to what Stefano said, like developing countries or underdeveloped countries or developed countries, doesn't matter. Like local, or like the locality, or the countries and the cultures, they have their own models. I mean, they existed before. For example, in Kyrgyzstan, we have a perfect, a cool circularity nomadic model, which we can use and reuse. So I would actually say that the power and how we actually can manage circularity is going back to the roots and look models which actually worked centuries ago, and they will still be working now. So I think it's very important to go back to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Aya, over to you for your last final quick remark.
The same as Marta, as Aymerim mentioned, that we have a lot of cases, a lot of unique business models, and a lot of sustainability in communities, in small or larger companies. We just have stories we haven't heard yet. So with hearing those stories, we learn, we take something which works for each scale, and not one solution fits all scale. We don't have to create 100 biogas or 100 ZGP companies. You have to take what fits you and adjust it. So I think for cooperation, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Marta, over to you.
Thank you. So for me, I think now the most important thing is to work with youth people, let them know that what was happening before is also good, and they have the tools to make a link between the modern, which is also these wonderful advances on technology, innovation, knowledge, and put it in link with what was already good, what was working with nature, and create this future. Without which we will not have future if they cannot dream about this sustainable future. So this is my message.
Thank you for that important message. And I look at Stefanos, if you also want to come in with one key thing that you want to say.
My one key thing is that it's the time to apply something I learned from my first boss in the in the UN system the carrots and sticks approach. Carrots for incentives for the ones that they want to really go the circular way, but at the same time regulatory sticks for the ones that they don't want to go circular. And I think we do both the regulatory environment and the advocacy. I mean, you can many times I'll give you a small example here. Sorry for going over time. The first time I went to my life in Germany, that was about 30 years ago, I was impressed with the cleanliness. You know, it's a spotless. I was in Munich, and it was a spotless country, a spotless city. And then I said to what used to be my girlfriend and today is my wife, it's so clean here. The people really keep it clean. And my girlfriend and today my wife said, no, the people pay too much when they litter. So we need this approach, yes, for advocacy, but also have regulatory environment to support circular economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stefanos. So with this, I want to especially thank all our speakers today for sharing their experiences and lessons learned and key insights from their work. I also want to thank the audience. We've had a lot of people here today. I'm happy to see that. We've had a lot of activity in the chat. I'm very pleased to see that. Thank you so much for coming and participating today. We hope you enjoyed the discussion. And please remember to register also for the upcoming food system solution webinars that we'll be having later this year. There is a link in the chat so you can see the topics. A recording will be shared later with you as well as some of the PowerPoints. And with that, I'm closing the webinar today. Thank you again and have a really good day to everyone. Bye-bye.